Now I'm going to talk about strategic alignment for driving superior business results through integration of finance with operations and strategy. This is a part of the Leadership Framework 2020, which I released during last couple of days. As you might have already watched my videos, part 1 and part 2 from Accountant to Strategic Leader, where I introduce Leadership Framework 2020. And this is a part of financial leadership, that is integration of finance with operations strategy. Because when you talk about finance business partner or finance acting as a strategic business partner or strategic advisor or whatever the buzzwords nowadays you can hear. So when we talk about finance acting as a finance business partner, you have to keep one thing in mind, that you are a finance professional, right? You will not be relieved from your duties and responsibilities as an accountant or as a finance professional. Whatever role you have to play, either as a finance business partner or a strategic advisor or strategic business partner, you have to play it within the domain of finance, right? So the first step in order to transform your accounting function into the role of finance business partner or acting as a strategic advisor, you have to integrate your finance with the operations and strategy. And today I'm going to give you one model, very practical model, and I personally worked on its implementation. Whatever I am explaining you, it's from my personal experience. I implemented in my organization as a part of finance transformation to integrate the finance with operations and strategic planning. And it helped us to add tremendous amount of value to the business. So as you can see on the screen, this is a model. Usually we call it as a driver-based modeling or driver-based financial planning, that help us to integrate our financial planning and budgeting with the operations and the strategic plan. Now you have to pay attention here, because I am going to explain this framework in the clockwise view, like starting from the green portion here, 6 o'clock view, 9 o'clock, 12, and 3 o'clock view. In the clockwise I will be explaining, and you have to pay attention here, because I will also explain you how you can use this model to integrate your accounting and finance with the organization operations and strategy, to act as a finance business partner or a strategic advisor to your board or to your management. So as you can see on 6 o'clock view, if you see, this is the long-term objectives of the organization that is derived from the vision and mission of the organization. So first of all, you have to understand and look into the vision and mission of your organization. What's their vision and mission? And most of the organizations, they have major 6 to 7 or 5 to 6 strategic objectives. This example I take from one widget manufacturing company in North America. So as you can see, their long-term strategic objective, which is 3 to 4 years, could be longer, 5 to 10 years maybe. So it is starting from increasing profit margin by 20%, gain market share to 40%, improve the customer satisfaction score to 95%, decrease the cost of production by 25%, create a continuous improvement culture. So these are the long-term strategic objectives of the organization, and that is very common. This is quite common in most of the companies or most of the manufacturing companies. So these strategic objectives are now broken down into annual objectives. For example, increase profit margin by 20%. For the first year, our objective is to increase profit margin by 5%. To gain market share, our objective first year is to increase market share by 25%. Then to improve the customer satisfaction score, we have to improve the customer satisfaction score to 85% during the first year. Then decrease the cost of production. Then to create a continuous improvement culture, we have to train the employees in continuous improvement methods and increase the employee engagement to 40%. Then these objectives are further cascaded down or broken down into some short-term initiatives or projects, you can say. So for example, increase profit margin by 5%. You can see the connection of dots. This is, as we usually told, that you have to connect the dots. So this is all about connecting the dots, like how you can connect the dots and align your day-to-day activities and operational activities of your organization with the long-term strategic objectives and the vision and mission of the organization. This is all about connecting the dots. So if you can see, increase profit margin by 5%, that can be achieved by developing an affordability initiative, develop a delivery improvement system, implement a continuous improvement system and culture, automate product A, B, and C production line. Because obviously, if you automate, that will bring lots of efficiencies and cost savings in your operations. So it can lead to your improvement in profit margin, right? Then increase the market share by 25%. How it can be achieved? Through developing a delivery improvement system, develop growth strategies, initiate a customer survey process. Then if we take the example of train employees in continuous improvement methods, how you can achieve it? Invest in ISOs. You may be aware about this ISO standards. Then introduce all employees to lean concepts, develop a mentoring program that maybe you can appoint one mentor to train the employees for the employee engagement, to motivate the employees, to train the employees, to identify their skills gaps or skills analysis, to increase their engagement to the maximum level. So the point is here is how it's relevant to us as a finance and accounting professional. Now, what you have to do, these high level or short term initiatives, which I mentioned here on the 12 o'clock view in the pink color, these initiatives or programs, you can further broken down into day to day activities. And then those activities you have to assign to the relevant departments or the functions. I will give you another example in the next slide so you will better understand in the tabular format. But let's assume, for example, you have to implement a continuous improvement system and culture. So this improvement system and culture cannot be done by the one department. You have to divide it into several activities into different functions. If you can see here the dots and connect it with the 3 o'clock view, who are involved in this? Director engineering. Obviously, they have to re-engineer many processes. Plant manager who is operating the plant. Then director of finance. You as a finance professional, you are heavily involved in this initiative. Then director of supply chain, HR, director of quality. So all these strategic alignment you can accomplish using this system. So for example, if we compare our traditional budgeting and forecasting, in traditional budgeting, what you do every month, just you compare your actuals with the budget, right? If the actual exceeds the budget, you mention it as unfavorable variance. If the actuals are within the budget, you mention it as favorable variance. But I really don't believe this concept of favorable favorable variance, because without knowing the drivers behind those actuals, behind those actual numbers, what are the drivers, how you can treat them as favorable or unfavorable. For example, if you're using this system, which is the driver based, and you know all the drivers and all the activities which are involved in accomplishing your long-term strategic objective. So in case, for example, your training cost exceeds budget by, let's say, 20%. If you are not using this model, what you will report to your management? You will report simply that the budget for the training exceeds by 20%. It's unfavorable variance, but you are not reporting the drivers, the reasons behind the such excessive use of budget or the overutilization of budget. Why? Because in order to accomplish this objective, maybe organization, they have to spend some more amount, more figures or more resources on, for example, appointing a mentor or a training program, or implementing or acquiring consultant to implement the ISOs in your organization. So the thing is, the main point is you have to understand whether the organization is carrying out all the activities and is carrying out all the initiatives which is required to accomplish this annual objectives, and then ultimately which are linked to the strategic objective. You should not only think about the cost. If actual cost or actuals exceeds the budget, you can reallocate your resources. That's why here we are adding the resources in this matrix as well. So you have, for example, if the cost is quite below, if the actual cost is quite below the budget, maybe in your budgeting or financial planning analysis section, they report it as favorable variance, but that might be unfavorable. If you see the drivers, maybe the actual cost is lower than the budget because they are not carrying out all the initiatives, all the activities which are required to accomplish their annual objectives and ultimately the long-term or strategic objectives. That means they are compromising their short-term objectives or short-term goals for the longer-term strategic objectives. So how you can accomplish your long-term objectives if you are compromising them for just short-term gains or short-term cost savings, right? So this model is quite helpful to integrate your finance, and the best way to implement this and to integrate your accounting and finance into this model is the use of ABC, that is activity-based costing, or its most advanced version is activity-based management, where, as I mentioned, all these initiatives you have to further divide or cascade down into different activities, and you have to allocate those activities to different departments. So you should calculate the cost of each activity based on the activity-based costing or activity-based management as a more advanced version of ABC. So when you compare the costing or actual cost, you have the cost of each activity, each driver, and you have to do your budgeting and forecasting also, as well as on the basis of such activity-based costing. So when you will compare your actuals with the budget, you are comparing, basically you are reporting how the organization is accomplishing or achieving its strategic objectives. So this is the concept of integrated reporting, where you're reporting organization performance against the strategic objectives and the risk and opportunities and the operational excellence and the operational efficiencies. And also you can link with the different KPIs, as you can see on the 3 o'clock view. For example, increase profit margin by 15%, increase market share by 25%. These are different metrics or KPIs you can use to measure your performance, and you can report these in your financial reports. That could be quite helpful for the businesses or for the higher management to make business decisions. If you will simply report the numbers, actual versus budget, that will not be helpful for them to make any strategic decision or important business decisions. Here, if you integrate your accounting and finance with the operations and strategy, of course, you can act as a finance business partner or a strategic advisor. This is another example of the same model in the tabular format. This is taken from a coffee making company like Starbucks. Their strategic objectives, if you can see, is improve profitability by 12% during next 2 years. Then these strategic objectives are broken down into initiative, programs, or project, that is cost control initiative, yearly cost saving of $280 billion, revenue growth of 5 to 8% during the next year. These are all the real numbers which are taken from the Starbucks company, from their financials and their annual reports. So how they are accomplishing this initiatives, projects, program? Through these activities. As I mentioned, you have to divide your activities, you have to divide your initiatives, projects, programs into activities. For example, cost control initiative, how they can achieve? Through these activities: use of machine labor for coffee roasting, asset utilization improvement activities, volume expansion to save cost for economies of scale. Then the department and functions who are required to accomplish these activities are operations and roasting department, which is used to accomplish this activity of use of machine and labor for coffee roasting. Then asset utilization improvement activities, that will be by asset management department. Then volume expansion, it will be by sales and marketing department. So you can see how different functions in the organizations can work together or align their activities to accomplish the common strategic goals and objectives for the organization, right? Then the resources required, you can mention here. Then the type of activity, maybe it's the operational activity, maybe it's a transactional activity, maybe it's a project, you can mention here. Then these are the KPIs measures. You can pause this video and you can have a look and you can understand how you can integrate your finance and accounting with the operations and strategy. For example, these are the activities: use of machine labor. I will give you this example. You have to calculate the cost of this activity. For example, the depreciation that is involved in this machinery, the labor that is involved in running that machinery, repair and maintenance, or whatever the operating cost of that machinery. This is the cost of this activity, right? So when you have the cost of this activity and all these three activities, you can compare these activities with, okay, these are the costs which are required to perform these activities, and this is leading to this much of cost saving. So you can do the cost benefit analysis also, right? And in your actual versus budget performance also, you can report all your budget performance based on the drivers, based on the strategic objective, initiative, and projects. You can measure the performance of organization in terms of what activities they are being carried out to accomplish their strategic goals and the initiatives and projects for the year, right? So what are the benefits of this model which I just presented you? It closing the gap between organization today's performance and its vision. As I mentioned, strategic objectives are based on the vision and mission of the organization. Methodically destroy silos and increase employee engagement, enabling success of key strategies. As you can see how it can destroy the silos and how it can achieve strategic alignment between different departments by working on the same strategic objectives. Then alignment of organization resources with its strategic objectives and initiatives helps improving daily management system, improvement in cross-functional management system. Key performance indicators and key operational indicators are linked with activities and initiatives for accomplishment of strategic objectives, and that's what called as integrated reporting. In the integrated reporting, you have to mention your indicators, key performance indicators, which are linked with the organization's strategic objectives, so you can monitor and measure the performance of organization in terms of its strategic objectives, right? Then recognition of opportunities to reduce product, service, and process cost enhances competitiveness and profitability. As I mentioned in the last email, you have different activities you can identify which are value-adding activity, which are non-value-adding activities. Then you can reallocate your resources from low value activities to high value activities, from low potential projects to high potential or high value projects, right? An effective way of integrating accounting and finance function, including planning and budgeting, with organization's operational and strategic plans using, as I mentioned, ABC costing. You have to use activity-based costing. Here, activity-based costing is not just the method of overhead allocation. Here, it's a very advanced version of activity-based costing where you have to calculate the cost of each activity that is required to accomplish that initiative or program for the year, and then how it links to the strategic objectives. Then it enables your finance team and leadership, of course, to act as a strategic advisors to their business.